in a tough situation, it's important to just take stock of yourself and your own capacity. And really, really, you just have to decide what you're willing to deal with and what you're willing to really let in. Welcome to Lay It On Me, a space where we come together to explore all of life's moments. I'm Claire, and I'm here to listen, share what I can, and most of all, hold space for you. This is a place to lay down whatever's on your heart. No judgment, just honesty, love, and connection. Whether it's something big or small, light or heavy, lay it on me, and let's see where we end up together. Okay, we're here. Episode 2. Thank you for being here. Oh my gosh, I am recording this actually the day before episode 1 is going to be released. It took me a bit longer to finish that whole process than I anticipated. And that's fine because we're learning as we go. And if you're listening to this, you'll probably already have listened to episode 1, and that's the theme, right? We're in process, we're in progress, and we're learning as we go. So I just can't wait to be here, and it just feels surreal in the most beautiful way to have set up my little rinky-dink podcast recording setup and sit down and press record and just be here. And I don't know. I am just over the moon. My heart is so full. I am really excited to continue this show. Thank you again to everyone who listened to episode 1. I'm recording the day before it's out, and so I am just already so grateful that I feel the support and the love from so many different directions coming in, and I really am excited to hear what people think about episode 1 after it comes out. This episode is going to be a little bit of a shot in the dark. I mean, so far everything has been, but this one, I'm recording before I release the first one, so I won't have a chance to implement any newer thoughts or ideas or feedback, but I definitely want to just make sure that I can continue the trajectory of getting this show on its feet because I'm just so excited for what it might become. And the beginning is definitely feeling rocky, but I'm here and I'm in it, and I'm really grateful that you are here as well. So okay, now we're gonna just check the recordings, check the video, make sure we're good to go to sit here and really dive in to episode 2. If you are returning from the intro episodes and or episode 1, wow, thank you so much for being here at the very, very beginning. I appreciate you so much. And whether you choose to contribute by sending an idea or a thought or a question, or whether you are just listening and receiving and taking it in, I'm so grateful for you, and I couldn't do this without you. So thank you. That is number 1 where I wanted to begin this episode, is just expressing the gratitude and just the overwhelming love that I have been feeling from all angles. And I am so grateful to be here, and I'm so excited to continue to dive into some really juicy and wonderful topic submissions from you. First things first, I just want to share a little bit of news. I got engaged. Let's see if I could get this in focus. I don't know. If you're watching on video, if it's blurry, I'm sorry. I will only be able to know that later. Last week, Ryan and I were on vacation in Nicaragua, and he proposed on the beach at golden hour. And it was so perfect, and it is so perfect, and I am so happy, and I am just excited, and I feel like it's news worth sharing, so I wanted to share. I just love it. I just am so happy, and it's just fun news to share. I'm entering a new era, the engaged era. It still feels a little bit surreal. We've been home for about a week, and it's just one of those things where, first of all, I was not expecting it at all in the moment. We've had many conversations leading up to this phase of our relationship, and so we were on the same page in terms of where we are going together. But I did ask for a surprise proposal. That was my only request. I had no others, no timeline, no constraints, no anything. I just wanted that little touch of a surprise, and he delivered, and it was beautiful, and I'm just so happy and so full of love, and so I just wanted to share. And I'm assuming that most people listening here are in my life and on my Instagram, so you probably all already know, but I just needed to use my own platform to talk about myself just for a tiny bit, just a little bit. It's forgivable, right? This is worth it. Okay, enough of that. I'm gonna dive right into the topics that we're going to talk about today. And if you're coming from episode 1, you can see the time on these episodes, I know, before you hit play, but I want to just let you know that this episode is going to be a little bit shorter than episode 1. I bit off more than I could chew. But I didn't, but I did a little bit. As I was talking about in episode 1, I have a tendency to do that, and that's exactly what happened, and I think that is exactly what was meant to be. But I do want to make this, at least right now, a little bit easier to chew for me and for you. So I'm going to keep this a little bit shorter. I'm going to aim, I'm going to say it now, I'm aiming for 45 minutes to an hour, not an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours like episode 1 was. So just wanted to get that out there. If you listened to episode 1, thank you. I truly can't thank you enough. I really can't. And that's why I'll never stop. I have so much gratitude to give, and you deserve to hear it, because you being here means so much more than you could ever know. I really feel, for one of the first times that I have sat down and spoken to a camera or into a microphone in any capacity, in any setting, sitting down to record this podcast, even last week, 2 weeks ago, even for episode 1, I have already felt so connected to anyone who is listening or might listen without knowing exactly who you are or who you're going to be. I just feel so connected to this space, and that's why I am just so excited and so grateful to be here. And it's hard to put into words, and I really feel so passionate about this project, and I hope that it can provide some value to you out there, because you are already providing so much to me. So with that, let's dive into our first topic of discussion today. This first topic comes from Corinna. Hi, Corinna. Corinna is one of my absolute best friends, and she sent this incredible question / topic that I think is really, really valuable to talk about. So what I wrote down and was reflecting on from Corinna is this: how to know when to honor a boundary and to set the boundary from your side, versus when to maybe not so much set a boundary, but give more of a request and be okay with what the other person gives you, what they decide, etc. So sort of being in the position of saying, here is my request for you and us in this situation. You can meet me there or not. It's not a hard set boundary. If you don't, we'll figure out another way through. It doesn't mean I'm just going to walk away or that I'm going to separate myself. But expressing what you want and being in a position where if they can't meet you there, that's not end all be all or make or break, but navigating sort of that in between of when you need to set a hard and fast boundary for yourself and the other person, and when you can allow yourself to maybe be in that in-between space a little bit and continue to gather information and figure out what is best for both people or all people in the situation. So, Corinna, hi. That was a little bit of a paraphrase, and I hope that my understanding of this topic is in line with what you were feeling and hoping to get across. And yeah, so let's dive into boundaries. Woo! Whoa. Boundaries can be really tricky. And calling back to episode 1, boundaries can be complicated. And anything involving a relationship between you and another person or other people is bound to be confusing, complicated, prime for misunderstanding or frustration. I'm not saying that that's the given, but if we're in a position where we're feeling the need to set boundaries or the need to express our needs more or in a different way and have a different dynamic with another person, it can be really, really tricky. I definitely did not used to really understand boundaries at all until maybe, I don't know, I want to say maybe like 5 years ago, I started really, really consciously working to learn what my boundaries were, what I wanted them to be, and learn how to set those boundaries in relationship with other people and where that was necessary or not. And this actually does tie in a little bit to people pleasing that we were talking about in episode 1, where if you're set out with people pleasing tendencies, you are probably sacrificing your boundaries a little bit if that people pleasing habit is becoming something that is harming you or causing you to lose yourself, or if it's becoming a problem, there's probably some boundaries that you can set with yourself in order to help alleviate whatever stress or unsatisfaction is coming up from you feeling like this people-pleasing tendency is harming you or not in your best interests. And again, like I said in episode 1, it also doesn't feel to me as if it really ever works. And I think that that is because when we're talking about boundaries, there's a really important thing to remember for me, that setting boundaries is best for both people. Even if it feels hard for you and hard to set this boundary with another person, it is best for both people. And something that you and I, Corinna, say to each other a lot is what's best for me is best for both of us. What's best for me is best for all of us. And so I know that you believe that. And so in thinking about this sort of boundary versus request versus take it or leave it type of expression, I think there can be a lot of value in just coming back to what is best for me right now. And if you are moving through that situation with the belief that what's best for me is best for both of us and best for all of us, then it's enough to ask yourself, what's best for me right now, and not have to feel the pressure to navigate or predict or understand or manage what you think the other person might be feeling or thinking or wanting or needing, or all of that is something that you can put down for a moment if you're feeling confused or stuck in this in-between of, do I need to set a boundary right now for me, or can I get more from this other person or from this situation or something else or something different? So, wow. Boundaries. I'm getting a little tied up here because boundaries are really hard to talk about. So I will get a little bit personal and say that I have had to really, really learn boundaries, because I think a really big thing to be reminded of when it comes to boundaries and setting boundaries is that boundaries are always about us. They're not so much about the other person. And I think that it's a pretty common misstep to want to say, like, this is my boundary and therefore you cannot cross it, right? And that actually isn't how boundaries are the most beneficial for us or anyone else around us, because we are only in control of ourselves. We are not in control of pretty much anything in this life, but we are in control of the choices that we make and the actions that we take. And when setting boundaries, it's really important to remember that it's for you and it's about you and it's about you making a choice. And if you are outwardly expressing a boundary to someone else to say, hey, this is my boundary. If this happens, this is what I'm going to do about it. This is how I'm going to respond to it. That is not to tell this other person, oh, you're not allowed to do X, Y, and Z, or you cannot say this to me, because you just can't control another person in that way. And if you think that you can, and if you want to believe that this other person will listen when you say you're not allowed to treat me this way, you are allowed. Let me just clarify. You are allowed to tell someone you're not allowed to treat me this way. Right. But the boundary is then if you treat me this way, this is how I respond. And that's for you. And that's about you. And that's saying, if you treat me this way, I will walk away. If you treat me this way, I will respond accordingly. If you treat me this way, I will separate myself from you and this situation, and I am no longer involved, right? If you treat me this way, there isn't a way forward for us, as there has been. Things have changed, or things will change, right? So, to come back around to this specific question. So, a hard and fast boundary. That's, if you do this, I do this, right? Because you can't prevent that person from doing what they're going to do. You can ask and you can hope, and you can, if you're in an intimate relationship with someone and they continue to cross your boundaries, that's a problem, right? If you're expressing boundaries that you have and they're not being respected at all, that's a big, big, big discussion to have with yourself and maybe a third party and your partner and all of that. But again, when it comes to the core of boundaries, it really is about you, and it's what you need, and it's what you are taking control of based on what the other person is giving you or how the other person is treating you, right? But it's not about controlling them, and it's not about preventing them from acting the way that they act, but it's about expressing, hey, if you act this way, I'm going to act this way, or I'm going to not react, or I'm going to leave the situation, right? So this other area of deciding to say, this is my request, and you can either meet me in it or not, that is a little bit of a different world, because that, to feel solid in that space, I think that all that matters is that you get really, really clear with yourself and what you really need, and what you might need based on how the other person responds in one way or another, or a third way that you might not expect, right? So getting clear on, if you are going to be in this position with someone to say, this is my request, take it or leave it, that feels like there is, this is so tough. It feels like there is something there with you that you are willing to meet this person where they're at and continue to learn how to re-navigate. And ideally, if they meet you in that request, then best case scenario, right? Then you know what you need. You're great. You're on the same page. And there is probably a clear path forward with that. I think the less clear path forward is if you say, here's my request, meet me in it or not, and this person does not meet you in it. That is hard to predict how you will then move forward with this person or in this relationship or in this communication or situation or whatever it might be. But what this sounds like to me is that you aren't in a position where you feel the need to set a hard and fast boundary to say, meet me here or I can't go forward. You are saying, meet me here. That's best case scenario. If you meet me here, we're in this together and I know how to continue on together. If you don't, I need to figure out what to do, right? Like you're not in a position where you're saying, I won't move on with that if you don't meet me in this request. But I think where you are maybe sitting in this situation is in a little bit of this like open, unknown space that can be a little bit confusing, even if you feel really sure that that's where you want to be coming from. You want to be coming from this open space to say, if you don't meet me at the place I'm asking you to, that is still where ultimately I would like to end up. I would like to get us on the same page. I would like to be on the same team. And so I need to know where you're at right now with that. And that can be really hard to navigate with another person, especially if they might not really know where they're at either. And that could be a little bit of where some of this could be coming from, is you might see the potential in this relationship or in this situation to get on the same page, to meet where you want to meet, which is why you probably don't want to set this boundary to say, hey, if you can't meet me here right now, then we're moving on. Because I think that you maybe are trying to just open the door a little bit to say, look, hey, this is where I'm at. This is where I want to be. Are you here or not? And if you're not, please just tell me. Please just express that to me. And please, I would love to understand what you want also, and how we can maybe eventually get to the same page or find a new way that neither of us have explored yet together. If we're not on the same page, if we aren't understanding each other completely, then how can we do that? And I think you, specifically Corinna, are such a smart communicator in that way, where the biggest thing is to just understand where the other person is at, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and then you can always move forward. There's always a way forward if you can find a little bit more of that understanding for yourself and for that other person. And so I imagine with this situation, if you're questioning, do I set a hard and fast boundary, or is it okay that I'm letting myself sort of be a little bit more open in this and a little bit more unsure? Like, I think that part of the questioning maybe of this position is the feeling of like you want to just have certainty. We all do, right? And allowing yourself to be in this in between, in relationship with another person, where you are setting yourself up to be open to really receive where this other person is at, and it could be something you don't expect. So I think that position to be in is really, really powerful, because you are opening up the space for you both to understand each other better and for you both to find a new way forward together, whatever that might mean. You're not in a position where you're saying there's black and there's white and there's this and there's that, and if we aren't on the same page, then that's just it. that's just not the position that you're in right now. And I think that that is totally fine, but it just feels maybe a little bit more muddy than clear because there is so much unknown. And it's hard to live in that space, I think, with another person who might not be clear on where they really stand, or at least they're not expressing it to you clearly. And I think that maybe there's a level to this space of, here's my request, here's where I want you to meet me or not. And if not, we'll make a different choice and try again. And I think the core of the reach towards this other person could be that sense of like, what I need is to just know where you're at with me or with this situation or with whatever the specifics of the circumstance might be, and then get clear with yourself give yourself time to get clear with yourself on how this other person's position affects you. And with more information and understanding from that other person, maybe you do set a boundary next time. Maybe you don't. Maybe you make a new request. Maybe, there will be a new way to navigate it based on what you can receive from that other person and then what you can also continue to give in turn. So, wow. Boundaries. Let me read a little bit more of the notes I took, see if I missed anything. Not so much a boundary but more of a request and being okay with what they give you, what they decide, etc. Okay. So, in thinking about this again, I do feel like there is a space for internal boundaries within this navigation where you have to get clear with yourself and say, if this other person decides they can't meet me where I want, what does that mean for me? And what does that mean for us moving forward? And there are internal boundaries within that to say, okay, then maybe I don't give this other full part of myself to this person. Or maybe even just giving yourself a little bit of time and grace to have the space to reflect and be open to finding a new way forward with this person or within this situation. This sort of in-between space of feeling like, okay, I'm giving a request to this person and I'm okay if they take it or leave it. That actually is a level of you setting an internal boundary for yourself to say, I'm okay with this unknown right now. And boundaries can change. And the more information that you gather about another person or about a situation, that's when your boundaries change. So with the position that you're in right now to say, I'm okay if they take it or leave it, great. And if you feel differently in a different situation, great. And allowing yourself to find where that line is. And I think thinking about boundaries as sort of just like, I sometimes like to think about it as what amount of space am I willing to open up to allow in whatever this other person is giving me. And if it's in a tough situation, which if we're considering setting a boundary, it probably is. In a tough situation, it's important to just take stock of yourself and your own capacity. And really, really, you just have to decide what you're willing to deal with and what you're willing to really let in. Sometimes, for me, that looks like disengaging or not continuing a conversation or leaving a situation. That's like the most extreme. I am not allowing this in for me right now. That's probably like the harshest level of a boundary, is to disengage, disconnect, leave the situation. Then there is a lot of middle ground. And one version of that for me is to have just this internal sense of a boundary where I can continue to stay in this situation or interaction with another person. And I have my internal boundary set to where I'm not going to take in everything that they're giving me. And if I feel like there's some sort of ulterior motive or harsh judgment or anything that I don't want to fully absorb or let completely affect me from this other person, right? Then I'm just going to have sort of my internal boundaries ready and aware to be able to receive this person and be in this interaction or situation, but not completely allow myself to let my guard down. And sometimes that's what it feels like, is I can allow myself to continue to try and navigate a way through this interaction, but I'm a little bit closed off in the sense of I don't need to walk away. I don't need to disengage and leave the situation necessarily yet, but I'm allowing myself to sort of feel out and observe myself and the other person and what's affecting me and how, in order to figure out how to navigate through it without completely disengaging or without separating myself from the situation, right? And sometimes that is the best solution, to just disengage. And sometimes you have to, in certain settings, in certain types of relationships with certain people, etc. But sometimes if you are in this sort of in between, which this is a different version of that, I think, than maybe where you are. But if you're in this a little bit of an in between where you're like, okay, I would like this from the other person, or I would like this energy between us. And so what am I willing to give up? What can I take? And what can't I take from this other person? And what can't I give to this other person? And really just continuing to navigate what that balance might look like. And it's all from our end, right? So if we're navigating a person that we feel affects us in a certain way that might be troublesome or bogs us down or causes frustration, or they are judgmental, or there's so many versions of what this could be. But to live in this in-between space is to just completely take control of yourself by focusing on what you can control. How much of this person can you receive? How much of yourself can you express with this other person? And what are the things that you feel like you can't express? Or what are the things that you have expressed that haven't been received? And so how do you now reroute and say, okay, maybe that's for me. Maybe that's not something that I give to them. And then in terms of, what can I receive from this other person? What are they giving me? And what do I do with it? Do I internalize it and take it on and absorb it and let it affect me? Or do I witness and observe it and move on? And in some situations, that's possible. And in others, you walk away, So yeah, boundaries are really tricky. And this, I definitely relate to this sort of like navigation phase of setting boundaries or learning what boundaries to set, because it's learning what you need. Boundaries are a tool for us to keep ourselves safe, for sure, mentally, physically, emotionally, you name it. Boundaries are really important because they are a way that we can keep ourselves safe, to say, if this happens to me, then this is what I get to do about it. And this is what I will do about it. And that is really powerful. And learning what that means for you and how that feels, and when you have to do that, or when you want to live in this in-between. And sometimes it can be really scary and confusing to allow yourself to live in this in-between, because you're like, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt by this other person. I don't want to push myself too far. I don't want to put myself in harm's way. But if you are staying aware, which I know you certainly are, Corinna, and anyone else out there listening, if you are staying aware and questioning for yourself, what is okay? What are you okay with? What can you receive? What can you give to this other person? How can you move forward in this relationship or in this situation or with these circumstances? Continually just getting curious about what that means for you. And unfortunately, there is just no hard and fast rule or answer about what that is for any given person. It's so personal and it's so internal, and part of what can help is just opening up that curiosity and then trusting yourself when you feel like you know. When you feel like you know what you need to do, do it. When you feel like you know that this is too much or this has gone too far, then you know. And you set a boundary, and you will know when you know. That is one of the hardest things that I have worked to develop over the years, is that trust in myself when I know. Whatever it is, especially when it comes to interacting with another person, because I did not used to even ask myself any questions about what I was okay with or what I was willing to put up with or what I even wanted from other people or myself or interacting with other people or this or that. Like, I wasn't even questioning it. And so of course I got myself into some situations that I didn't need to be in. And that may have ultimately been harmful to me because I wasn't even aware of trying to set a boundary or trying to navigate with my own best interests at heart. This definitely goes back to people pleasing and masking and all of that. And what I was saying about masking in the first episode, this really, really rings true for me right now in terms of boundaries, because a version of masking for me was to have no boundaries. Because I was fine. Everything was fine. It didn't matter what happened to me or what people said or what people did or whatever. It was fine. I was fine. I would just brush it off and move on. Or so I thought. But that was a version of masking for me. And I know that that is not true to who I am and who I want to be, because the more that I have learned to set boundaries and the more that I have learned how that feels, how that affects me and the people around me, and that what is best for me is best for everyone and best for those around me. Because when I am in a relationship with another person, whether it be an intimate partnership, a friendship, a family relationship, a working relationship, any type of relationship with another person, when I have been able to stay true to what I need, we're all better off. Because if I don't stay true to what I need, I'm not a great person to be around. I'm really, really not. And I'm okay admitting that now, because I'm far enough beyond that phase of my life. It's so crazy to talk about stuff like this. But when I was masking and when I had no boundaries and when I just thought anything goes, who cares, I'm good, it doesn't matter, well, the boundaries that I needed to have got crossed, and I just didn't know that I needed to have them. And also, yeah, I was not a good person to be around because I was aimless and I wasn't intentional about interacting with other people. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted to experience connecting with another person. I wasn't really ever really connecting with another person because there wasn't much of me there to connect with. And so setting boundaries has been a really, really valuable tool for me because it's allowed me to get more in touch with myself. and with what I actually want and what I actually feel and what I actually need. And by continuing to practice, I have learned that I and everyone around me is better off, because we're all better off with each other if we are honoring our own boundaries and if we are honoring what we need. And if we're interacting with other people who are also doing that, oh my gosh, like things can be so wonderful, because there is that trust in yourself and the trust in that the other person is taking care of themselves, and I'm taking care of myself, and we can always move forward. And one more callback to episode 1, talking about people pleasing and masking. We have more to lose by not being true to ourselves. And so if we are in tune with ourselves, if we are figuring out what we want and what we need, and if we are learning how that shows up in relationship with other people, we're all going to be better off, because we can move forward together no matter the circumstances, if we are true to ourselves, how we feel, what we need, and if we can get to that sort of place together in relationship with another person, if we're navigating being in a different place than one another, if we can trust that we're both taking care of ourselves and we're both being true to ourselves, then there is always a way forward, no matter how far apart the viewpoints might be. If they are true to who you are and what you need, and there is a shared goal to continue a relationship or continue being in whatever circumstances you might be in together, whether it's family, friends, relationships, work, no matter what, if there is a shared goal to figure out a way to move forward, then you will. And the complicated thing comes when another person might not be willing to meet you there. And it's not that they're not willing to meet you where you're at, because that's a different story. But if they're not even willing to meet you in this process, wherever they are, but to meet you within the process of it all, then that is where there becomes more of a problem. And maybe that is where it becomes more difficult, and then maybe calls for stricter boundaries. If a person is not willing to learn with you, is not willing to understand with you or help you understand them, then that's more complicated and might call for stronger boundaries so that you don't overextend yourself to this person that's not even willing to try, you know? Wow. Boundaries. I would love anyone and everyone else's thoughts on this. And I didn't get super specific about setting boundaries in my real life, and I totally could. I could totally dive into all of this so much more, because I really, really, really feel strongly that boundaries have been a very valuable tool for me. The more intentionally I have used them and learned what they mean for me, it's really, really valuable. And I think it's really important to talk about. And so I would love everyone else's perspectives. And if there's any more specific types of boundaries or types of relationships that boundaries feel complicated in, or anything like that anyone would want to dive into with me, or send in some thoughts and ideas, and I'll dive right back in again. I would really, really love some more perspectives on this, because it's a very, very personal thing, and I'm not sure that it's talked about enough. So let's keep talking about it. Please let me know all of your thoughts. And to you, Corinna, I hope that this in-between stage that you might be living in, you are just honoring your needs, taking care of yourself, and trusting that what you're getting from this other person and what you're getting from yourself along the way will inform what you need and what you need to do. And when you know, you will know. Okay. On to another topic. Okay, let's see. I'm going to do a little bit more of a quickie and let's just see. Let's dive in. So this one is from Hannah. Hi, Hannah. Okay, Hannah said, okay, my hot topic is that I think men should take a break from theater and we only cast women and non-binary people for a while. Like, bring back women dressing up like men for roles because these guys need to know what it's like to audition as a woman, and some of them need to see that their current behavior should not fly. Like, why are we still hiring abusers on Broadway? Oh boy. So, wow. I said this was a quickie because it speaks for itself. And I am going to reflect on it a little bit, but hot take, Hannah, let's go. Okay. Men in musical theater. If you are a man in musical theater, not just musical theater, in theater, oh, share your thoughts. Do I dare request you share your thoughts about Hannah's hot take? I mean, I see where you are coming from, Hannah. I absolutely do. And in seeing more shows with all female and non-binary casts, it's very telling that we haven't been given the chance to do this for a while, right? In seeing more shows with women and non-binary casts, like 1776 doing an all non-male cast, Suffs has an all non-male cast, and honestly, okay, I showed up for the Suffs ECC for the touring production, and the amount of people in Pearl Studios that day was absurd. It was absurd because if you have ever auditioned for theater in New York City or literally anywhere, you know that there are way more women than men. There just are. In any high school across the country, I'm sure we've all been aware of the old trope. There's like one guy in the whole school that does theater and he gets all the leads because he's the only one, and then all these girls have to fight for all the roles and blah blah. That is a tale as old as time. Seeing the audition studio for Suffs was so eye-opening because it just proved that we need more shows like that. We need more shows that are all women and non-binary people. And because there's so many of us. There are so many of us, and we don't want to fight with each other over the like 3 lead romantic interest roles and stuff. We want to tell stories about women for women and non-binary people like Suffs and 1776 flipping all the founding fathers on their head, making them all women. It's so powerful because it just shows the amount of us that there are, you know? And okay, so then your point about some of them, men, need to know that their current behavior should not fly. Like, why are we still hiring abusers on Broadway? Goodness, I do not have an answer to that question. Why are we still hiring abusers on Broadway? I don't know. Thankfully, many have been, I'm not the biggest proponent of like cancel culture, and that's a whole separate thing, but I will say there has been some benefit from that type of culture because some of these people have been exposed and won't ideally be hired anymore or be the ones hiring. I think that's definitely a factor of like why certain types of people get hired, is also because certain types of people are doing the hiring. And that's probably a whole nother conversation, but wow. Okay, Hannah's hot take. I really did want to leave this to live on its own a little bit, because I think Hannah just put it so well. And I really, really would love to hear some responses and some further perspectives on this from everyone. Men, this is your chance. Voice your concerns. Defend yourself. Don't get defensive. It's not going to help. But I feel like there are definitely people that will completely be on board with saying like, yeah, okay, women have been outweighed for a while, and maybe it's time to give us a chance. Oh boy. Okay, I'm gonna read it again, Hannah. Here we go. Okay. My hot topic is that I think men should take a break from theater, and we only cast women and non-binary people for a while. Bring back women dressing up like men for roles, because these guys need to know what it's like to audition as a woman, and some of them need to see that their current behavior should not fly. Like, why are we still hiring abusers on Broadway? Okay. I really, really believe that this is such a deep and important conversation. And thank you, Hannah, for submitting it. I also just love the phrase, Hannah's hot take. Send me another one, girl. Let's make this a series. But one thing that I will just leave this with, and again, please share your thoughts. Please, everyone out there, please, please, please. I mean, you know, this wouldn't be that hard to do. That's the biggest thing I want to say. This would not be that hard to do. And being in that building for the Suffs audition is absolute proof that there are more than enough of us to go around. And, you know, we got to flip the script a little bit. There was a day when women were not allowed in theater, and there are days right now where certain types of people are being villainized and attacked in theater and in every aspect of everything. And look, we gotta flip the script that these abusers, whoever they may be, whatever types of people they may be, they're not in charge. They're not in control. They do not get to take away our value just because they think they can. If we can hold on to our worth and our value, no matter what, they do not have the power. They can try they might. Talk about setting boundaries. You can't control what another person's gonna do, but you 100% can control what power you give that person and how you respond and how you take action outside of that person's supposed power. Yeah? Woo! Let's leave that one there. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Corinna. These topics were so incredible, and I can't wait to hear all of your thoughts about it. Corinna and Hannah, please hit me up. How'd I do? Did I touch on anything that you wanted to talk about at all? If not, let me know. I'll try again. This was so incredible. I, again, am just so grateful to the types of ideas and topics that are being sent in. I can't wait to continue to see how this evolves. I really, really hope that as people start listening, you can start to get a little bit of a taste of what this could be. And if you have sparks of ideas, even just a spark, I'll follow it. That's my whole thing. That's my whole thing I'm doing here. I'm following the sparks. Remember? Send them in, please. Anything, big or small. You've now heard a little bit about how I might reflect and process, and I just can't wait to continue to dive into more of this juicy stuff. These are the types of conversations that I love to have and that I crave and that I love to listen to, and I just really, really hope that anyone out there is getting a little bit of value from this. And please, 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 please don't be shy. Send in your thoughts. If you don't want to comment, if you don't want to talk to other people, send me a message, send me an email. Don't even sign your name. It's fine. You can be a voice in the void. I just want to hear from you. Your perspective matters. Your voice matters. And you matter. And I love you. I love you. And until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. Lay it on me. Bye. See you next time. Boom. Now I have to get out of here. Hopefully the video is good.